It's a pleasure to be back here for our fifth of the interview series. As many of you may know, that this series was conceived out of the idea of bringing to you the business side of the design profession through great voices and iconic members of the community. So let me just tell you very briefly about Bjarke, because we're going to be talking about most of these things. What I have to say about what I've learned about Bjarke and Big and the practice in working with them and in just getting to know them is that they care as much that their buildings deal with the environment, not from its carbon footprint, which is very important to them, but how we live in them, how they are socialized within the environments they live in. And I think you'll get to see and experience that as West 57th Street comes to light. You may have experienced it a little bit when you put the giant heart in the middle of Times Square for Valentine's Day. And it was done because I believe that to see and to bring community together in a way so that they can have this experience and understand what it means to sort of live together and experience art and architecture. In 2011, the Wall Street Journal named Bjarke the Innovator of the Year. There's a long list of awards, and we can talk about that as we get through this conversation, but I'd rather just have you hear it directly from Bjarke. So thank you and welcome.
Actually, on a note, we were... The Valentines Heart, now that you mention it, it was designed to respond to how many people were actually around it. And the first night it was put up, we won the Super Bowl. So New York Times was more crowded than ever in history, I think. And like the heart like exploded.
So it got brighter as the more people were around it?
First we thought it was just because of the heart.
Right.
But then there was this other thing.
But did the color or the illumination of the heart get brighter as
the more people touched the plate or touched each other?
Yeah.
The brighter glowed.
So what brought about that idea?
We were asked to design a Valentine's Heart. And then actually Zoomtobel, the LED guys, said that they would give us as many LEDs that we could get if I wanted to give a talk with them. So then we had Valentine's Heart and LEDs. So that was it.
And that's how you put it all together. Well, let's start from the beginning. So where were you born?
I was born in Copenhagen.
Okay. I was expecting a trick question, weren't you? So your parents, what did they do?
My mom is a school dentist. In Denmark, every public school has a dentist associated with it.
Wow. So
that you have nice teeth, at least until you're 18. Then you're on your own.
Right.
And as a nice side effect, my girlfriend actually went to the school where my mom was the dentist, so I have a girlfriend with 0 cavities. and then my dad, he makes fiber optics. Actually, it's an interesting story. AT&T invented fiber optics, and then they patented it around the world. And of course, this is before the internet, because it was kind of based on fiber optics. So so they had to, I guess, like board an airplane and fly to a country and go to the patent office and like file a patent and blah, blah. So they skipped a few countries, and Denmark was seen as this agricultural nation exporting cheese and butter and bacon. So nobody bothered. So when my dad graduated from the engineering academy, he started reverse engineering how to manufacture fiber optics and started the production. And then eventually they became a small competitor, and eventually they got bought up. Wow. So that's, and it was kind of funny because like when I was a kid, I knew what my mom did. Obviously, she was a dentist. But with my dad, it was a slightly more tricky thing. So then he brought home when I was like 4 or 5, this 1 kilometer cable of fiber optics. And then he showed that if you light in one end with a flashlight, you could see the light after, 1,000 revolutions or whatever, it comes out in the other end. So he says it's exactly like a copper wire, except the copper wire transmits electricity, and I knew that was for like turning on the television and stuff like that. But this can't transmit electricity, it transmits information. And I was thinking, yeah, but who wants to transmit information? But then I found out my dad was right, and I was just not there yet.
Was he creative? Or was he more of a technician?
He's very smart. It was funny, like, he retired, and I was at a party, and then this guy comes over and says, is your dad's name Knud? Which is my dad's name. And I said, yeah. And then he turns around and says to his friend, so this guy is the son of Knud, the wise guy from Fiber. And I was like, I had to like call up my dad and say, do you know what they call you? The wise guy from Fiber.
And siblings? Do you have any siblings?
I have a big sister who's an economist, and I have a little brother who's 11 years younger, who's like most of all like a poker player, but also becoming an economist. So I'm sandwiched by economists.
Are you? So you're the typical middle child, right?
Yeah, exactly. Completely overlooked. And no, but I actually have a little theory about this. We're not going to get through all your questions.
No, forget it. Just throw it out.
But it just so happens that I have a big sister, 2 years older than me. She's like a typical big sister, like incredibly mature. She would remember my gym bag when we went to school, and like make sure that I caught the school bus, and sort of. So I had this like additional mom in a way.
Right.
So then I was like really like a typical little brother until I was 11, and then actually when my little brother was 2, my sister went to America to go to high school for 1 year. So I was alone with this little brother for like a year, and basically I carried him around until he was 5 or 6. It's like a miracle that he developed legs, because he didn't use them for the first many years. And suddenly, that you have to be, like, and he really admired me, and he thought I could make magic tricks. We could like sit in the bathtub, and I could take stuff and throw it over his head, and he wouldn't hear it land, and he thought I made it disappear. And sort of sort of so early in your life to be really something for someone, it's also kind of. It makes you man up to the challenge, that you don't want to let him down. So I think in that sense, I was a little child, like a little sibling that became a big sibling.
Yeah. My little brother's in the audience. I'm not even going to go anywhere near this, because he'll start talking back, and it won't be pretty. Did you always think you were going to be an architect?
No. I always thought I was going to be a cartoonist, actually.
Really?
Because it's like all 3 siblings in my family had like a special superpower, if you like. And my sister, she was very good at the piano and singing. And she's actually singing still in a choir today. I had like 5 years of piano lessons, and it got me nowhere. Then I could draw. So when I was a kid, I won all kinds of bicycles and televisions and like anything in these like drawing competitions. So my family had a steady supply of television sets and bicycles, basically. And then my little brother is this math genius. When he was like a baby, he developed like a passion for keys. And then that passion, because adults had keys, so he wanted keys. And in the beginning, we gave him fake keys or like decommissioned keys, but then he wanted the actual keys that could unlock stuff and start the car. So that became dangerous when he started the car at the age of 2. He couldn't reach the speeder, so it was not a problem, but still it was kind of... then he developed a passion for money. And first we just gave him, Monopoly money, but he quickly realized which ones were the actual money. And then that turned into math. So everybody had their superpower, and I was good at drawing. So I would, draw the T-shirts for the high school ski trip, or like the posters for the high school comedy. Right. And eventually I was imagining that I was going to become a cartoonist. And then when I was done with high school, there was no cartoon academy. So I went to the Royal Danish Art Academy School of Architecture. And the truth is really that I was imagining, because education is free in Denmark, so you don't worry so much about wasting like a couple of $100,000 on something you're not going to use. But I was thinking that I could spend, there was like a 2-year basic education. I could spend 2 years becoming better at drawing backgrounds, like landscapes and buildings, because I'd been spending my entire life drawing things moving, or like things exploding, or things in action.
Right.
And then I forgot about plan A and got involved with plan B.
You got hooked. I think you told me that you had gone through some boxes at home and found like old houses that you had drawn when you were a kid. Is that true? Is that what you...
Yeah, it's true. Like I had a period where I was actually but I think it was more like I had watched some James Bond movies, and then I was very fascinated with these buildings that had secret rooms. So then I went through this phase of like drawing these villas that had, they were always on the water, like a typical James Bond villain's lair. And then you could sail a boat into the basement, and there was, like from, I think there was a little bit of Goonies in it also, because there was like I was drawing these houses, these like huge villas, but I was always the child living in the villa, like I was not the guy owning it. So from the children's room, there was a cable, what do you call it, like a cable track that would take you to a tree house.
Like
sort of a zip line, exactly. Yeah. So it would have like all the awesome shit that a kid would want.
That's cool. Someday you have to like take those out and frame them. So I mentioned briefly that your architecture is as much about the people as it is about the buildings. Is that something that you just innately always believed in, or was somehow that taught to you?
I think I think in general that in Scandinavia there is maybe a sort of more a priori focus on social and environmental issues, maybe more than in other cultures. Like in reverse, I think nobody grows up in Denmark dreaming about becoming a millionaire or a billionaire, because chances are you won't, because you're gonna cough up 2/3 in taxes anyway. But also, like, nobody's poor, and nobody's really rich. So I think nobody is like. I never thought about even having my own company or anything. But then I think there is this. So there's a certain social concern, and then I think, since I didn't have any plan with going to architecture school, I spent a lot of time, and the Art Academy School of Architecture is, and especially then, was a very liberal school in this, like almost to the extent that there was absolutely no curriculum. It was more like you had I like to explain that you got a key card, a library card, and a card for the copy machine, so you could, photocopy your drawings. And then it was like, see you in 5 years at your graduation.
You go figure it out.
And I was like, I went straight from high school, and the average age back then at the first year was 23. So people started at relatively late age. So I was kind of very not used to not having homework, for instance. So I went down to the library and just with a friend of mine, and we just started in one end, browsing through everything. And I think because I had no preconceived idea about what architecture was all about, I was really trying to find some kind of reason why and I think eventually what is interesting about a building or an urban space is the possibilities it creates. So what can you do with it? And I think in that sense, architecture has the capacity to become the framework for our lives and set the stage for our lives. That's also why things look much more interesting once you put people in them. So it's not just some kind of a marketing tool that once you're done with your thinking, you plop some people into the collages and then you show it. It's more like throughout the process, things go from being abstract into becoming concrete as soon as you place people in any structure. So I think this idea of imagining the possibility of creating the framework for human life is really what makes architecture interesting.
Right. Was New York a challenge in that way, building a high-rise, basically, with that in mind?
I mean, I think definitely also like one other thing, like in the most loyal way. I mean, I think practicing in Denmark, maybe because of Denmark is by definition the most socially equal country in the world, that the distance between the richest and the poorest is the shortest. Of course, due to the absence of the miserably poor, and also because of the absence of the billionaires in general, there's a handful. The guy who owns Lego is doing quite well. But like in Denmark, the general idea is that you would try to do everything you can, like all the projects, all the housing projects we built in Copenhagen, because they're built in a new part of town. Everything, also from the client side, has been about trying to maximize the potential for making a lively environment around the building so it looks lively and nice and leasable. Whereas in America, in general, the concern is to not make the public domain overly accommodating to not attract homeless people. So there's like some kind of a, sort of some kind of a dilemma in a way. You want to make things nice and accommodating, but also not too accommodating.
Right.
So I think that duality is maybe more evident here than it is in Scandinavia.
And you've found that you're doing a lot of work in Florida, same, I guess would be the same. Plus, if you were homeless in Florida, that's the place to be homeless because at least the weather's decent, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Like the funny thing is, like, to my knowledge, actually, Vancouver, where we're doing a project, is somehow the homeless capital of
really
of Canada for some reason. But I think there also what we're looking at is a project where we're trying to sort of turn the underside of a bridge, which is traditionally where the homeless would go, to turn that into a really desirable urban space. And sort of one of the things we're looking at is because like it's a project that's sandwiched or like wedged between the bridges of Granville Bridge, the main bridge that arrives in Vancouver, comes to downtown. And in Vancouver, the weather is even worse than in Denmark, so it's a canopy can be very useful. So we're trying to make the underside of the bridge into a charming public domain. And one of the things we looked at is that we're now talking with Rodney Gray, the photo artist out of Vancouver, to basically turn the underside of the bridge into sort of the 16th chapel of street art. So essentially a series of, because a lot of the photo artists use light boxes. So they have like prints on transparent acrylic with lights behind. So then you have this sort of upside down art gallery of photo art above the street. So suddenly, so we can actually keep the underside of the bridge in the raw concrete that it is, but still it gets this layer of illumination and decoration.
Yeah. So what's the height of that? Is it a...
Yeah, it's from like maybe 20 to 60 or 80 feet. So it's pretty generous.
Yeah. I think actually you showed some images of that in Chicago last week, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the funny thing is, you know, that's how a lot of art used to be, like in the sort of vaulted ceilings of the churches.
True. Yeah.
Probably the first cartoons, one of these stories. But actually, a lot of the artists that we're speaking with are complaining that, you know, you can't display art upside down. And we're sort of like, you know, you're supposed to be the rule breakers.
Right.
So no, on the gallery wall.
But people are signing up, right? I'm sure that they...
I think with Rodney Gray on board, it should be...
That's great. So let's talk about Big for a second. When was it started?
We started Big in the winter of 2005. And actually, Big, me and my former partner, Sharon Smith, started Plot in 2001.
Right.
And then after 5 years, we decided to go our separate ways. And then a handful of people from Plot became JDS, and a handful became BIG. And actually, most of the partners that are now partners in Big were like architects or even interns at Plot back in the days.
So they've been with you all this time?
Yeah, actually, one of my partners who's here, I think maybe today, Thomas, who is one of the partners in the New York office. He was my first student at architecture school, then my first intern, and has now, you know, taken over control of the New York office. So in that sense, in a way, it started in 2001, and by name, at least, an incorporation in 2005.
Yeah. You're 38 years old. You've built this amazing practice that has sort of had this meteoric rise. Do you worry about keeping that pace?
I mean, the funny thing is that because architecture is so slow, I mean, I think it's true, we've been blessed with some pretty interesting opportunities. But also, for instance, like in September, we are opening our first art museum, first museum, the Maritime Museum in Copenhagen. So there's still so many buildings we haven't built that they're like, it's like sometimes you get this question from someone, so yeah, so now that you achieved everything, what do you want to do? And it was like, well, actually, we built like some mixed-use housing in Copenhagen, you know. You know, we haven't even begun scratching the surface of what I think we're capable of. And then also, I think another part of like creating a practice is that to take on like really challenging projects in different countries with different programs, you really need to build up a company and a culture. And for instance, I'm not the CEO of Big. Our CEO, Sheila Søgaard, is also here today, and just moved to New York. somehow it's a bit like preparing for, it's like really building up this team for like when the insane opportunity presents itself, that you can actually claim it and realize it and build it. So I think in that sense, I honestly believe that what we've done so far is merely foreplay to what's gonna come.
Well, that's something to look forward to, because you've done such amazing things. And, maybe so much of it is that there's a lot of visual attention to it. It's not quite built yet, but as it gets built, it gets bigger and bigger.